or we will get started. Good evening. It is now 5:30, and I call to order the April 15th, 2025 City Council meeting for the City of Hutchinson. Please call roll.
Richardson.
Here.
Garza.
Here.
Fast.
Here.
Magers.
Here.
Goss.
Here.
Pledge of allegiance.
We have Kim Beery from Trinity United Methodist Church to lead us in a prayer.
I invite you to pray with me. Loving God, during this week of Holy Week, we remember the loving sacrifice of Jesus given for each of us. We thank you for the diverse people who call Hutchinson their home, for the rich tapestry of traditions and stories that intertwine within our community. Lord, we ask for your wisdom to lead our city officials and leaders. May they govern with justice, compassion, and integrity, always prioritizing the well-being of all people. Help us to work together, to serve one another, and to build bridges where there are divides. May we be instruments of your peace. For us in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I have two proclamations. Justin, if you could join me at the front, please. The first one is for Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heat and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property value, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Stacy Goss, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the City of Hutchinson and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being in this and future generations. Would you like to say anything? Thank you.
Good evening, Justin Combs, Director of Parks and Facilities. Like we've done the last 10 or 11 years, we'll be planting trees at Orchard Park on the 25th with fourth graders from Plum Creek Elementary School. I think we have about 15 trees that we're going to plant this year. It's been a great tradition. We've planted probably getting close to about 100 trees in Orchard Park with the fourth graders. So again, 9 o'clock in the morning. It takes about an hour. So if any council members are available, I would love to have you join us. That's the 25th, Friday the 25th at 9 a.m. at Orchard Park. So thank you.
Kevin? Oh, there you are. This is National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require law enforcement, fire, or emergency medical services. We know that. And when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of law enforcement, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our law enforcement officers, Firefighters and paramedics are dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from our citizens who telephone the Hutchinson Reno County Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, and are the single vital link to our law enforcement officers, firefighters, and paramedics by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Hutchinson Reno County Emergency Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients, and whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year, now therefore I, Stacy Goss, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of April 13th through April 19, 2025 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. In the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Just like to remind council, this week is Telecommunications Week. If you get a few minutes, I know we're behind locked doors, but call me, let you in, let's just say hi to the staff. It is very important. They do a very critical job. Just like our firefighters and police officers, we're here to keep them safe, and we just appreciate the acknowledgement and recognition that they get this week, and we let them put their hair down a little bit and be comfortable and enjoy their week. But we have a lot to be proud of. You have a great 911 center. You have a great team here in the county, so we take care of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item number 5, petitions, remonstrances, and oral communications from the audience.
This is the time for public comment. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes and to items not on the agenda. Audience members may address items on the agenda when the item is discussed by City Council. Is there anybody here to speak in public comment? Please come forward and state your name and address.
I'm Pastor Darrell Peterson. I live at 805 East Avenue B in Hutchinson, Kansas. And I just got an issue that's, it's been going for almost a year. And the issue is pertaining to 3 houses down from us. It's got more trash, more garbage, more all of this. Why can't we get it cleaned up? I know they filled up 5 trash cans, but there's still that much out on the ground. Automobiles there, and it's just a piece of junk. And I know there's not one of you would let that get by, especially you, would let that get by for over a year. And you don't need to say anything. I just want to see the action of doing it. And the other thing is, I've put in a request in our alley. It's a pavement, and I turned in a report that there's a pretty good sized hole when you come in, and it's getting worse, and it's spreading out. And I don't know how long it takes to get them to come to do it. I don't want to do it myself, but I would if I had to. And so, but that's all I got to say. And Chris, my neighbor, has something like to say too.
Hello. My name is Chris Jackson, and I live at 814 East Avenue B. We've lived there for a couple years. I'm not sure if you're aware, but our neighbor is a very bad hoarder. We're starting to get an infestation of possums and raccoons on our porch that come in and out from under his porch. And they actually live in his house because he actually told us that they do. The trash is up to the ceiling inside the house. And being in the fire service for 28 years, if his house does catch fire, my house is going to be gone because it's so close. He cooks his food with propane torches because he has no other means of cooking. And it's a concern to my family and my kids. And I've seen you guys drive by, but it's like, it's getting worse. He comes home every day with more stuff every day. And it's like a tidal wave of stuff.
Chris, is this the same house that Pastor Peterson's talking about?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Is this the same house that Pastor Peterson was talking about? A different house?
This is a different house.
Okay.
I'm on the other side of the street.
Okay.
Well, I just have a concern for his safety and our safety, and instead of waking up every morning and having raccoons running off my porch and underneath his house.
Okay.
And Daryl, can you tell us which part of the alley is it? Which street?
On ours,
Yeah. Where
it's on our side of the street. It's just 3 houses down.
where the alley has washed out?
Well, the alley's washed out on by Seventh
So it's the
Street.
one by Severance, okay. Well, thank you guys for coming today. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Pastor, 1 minute, Pastor. You have reported this, right? You have reported this into the inspection department?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I did the one about the house once, and then I went in again, and she said, yeah, I know. Well, I know it's not getting done.
Okay.
And so, I've been notified her 2 times for that, and, so anyway.
Did you talk to her? Did you use our, was it Click?
No, I come in.
Okay.
I do everything by person.
Okay.
I look you eyeball to eyeball and talk to you.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Good evening, Council. Matt Williams, Director of Community Development. I haven't heard about this case, but I'm sure he has made the complaint, so I'll look into it. I know a lot of times these cases get hung up in the court system, trying to deal with it, but we'll look at both of these and get them addressed.
Thank you. And it is something that, even in just conversations with people out in the public, whenever they're turning something in, I always tell them that behind the scenes, unless it is put in a C-click fix, which, Daryl, it's no fault of your own that you prefer to do things in person, that's always an option. The only way to have something for someone to track without calling in or coming back to the city is to put it in on C-click fix, because then you have an item number or a ticket number to refer back to, and you can watch it. You actually get email updates. I put in, some people have hobbies, and I put things in on C-click fix because I don't. But so you actually get an email every time the status changes for one of your complaints, whether it's someone didn't mow their yard or it's a pothole or whatever. So C-click fix is the best way for residents to put this in, but it reaches a point where it comes out of C-click fix for you guys and it goes into the court system. And at that point, we're not updating C-click fix to say that it's going into court. That turns into a different process that the residents and the neighbors who turned it in don't see any longer, and they assume that we're not doing anything or that nothing will be done, but we are still doing something. So I know it would be really frustrating that you guys, eventually it looks like you're not doing anything, but I know you guys are.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the work you guys do.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anybody else here to speak in public comment tonight? Seeing none, please call the next item.
Item number 6, consent agenda.
Does council have any discussion on the consent agenda?
There were a number of items on here. I mean, there's just a lot to go through, but I didn't see anything that really stood out as an issue.
Is there anybody here to speak to public comment about the consent agenda specifically? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second. Go.
Richardson,
Yes.
Garza,
Yes.
Bast,
Yes.
Magers.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Item number 7, ordinance and resolutions. A, consider an ordinance charging franchise fee for transportation of natural gas by Black Hills Energy and authorize the mayor to sign.
Paul Brown, City Attorney. Also with us are representatives of Black Hills Energy, Jim Williams, the Regional Manager of Public Affairs, and Shane Cornelius, who is the Operations Manager, and they'll go to the podium. They're here in case you ask questions about a volumetric rate and therms or any of those type of things that I know nothing about. But I can tell you about the franchise agreement, which is the same as it is in the past. We haven't changed the rate, we haven't changed the term, we haven't changed anything except updated a little bit of language, so I'd ask the council to approve that.
Well, I would move to approve an ordinance charging a franchise fee for transportation of natural gas by Black Hills Energy and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Richardson.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Bast.
Yes.
Magers.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes. Sorry you guys didn't get to show off any knowledge of your formal whatever he said.
Thanks for everything you do.
Thank you.
Bye.
Next item, please.
Item 7B, consider an ordinance authorizing the loan agreement amendment number 1 between the City of Hutchinson and the Kansas Department of Health and Environment and authorize the mayor to sign.
Can you give me a minute? I'm
Yes.
trying to find the right page in the agenda. Okay. I'm ready. Is council ready?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So this is an ordinance for us to increase the existing loan amount that we have with KDHE from their SRF loan fund. Right now, that loan sits at about $3.5 million, and this increase would take us to just over $5 million. And the additional funds for $1.5 million covers us to do the permanent fix over at the Headworks building for the grit removal at the wastewater treatment facility. This has been in process since 2022. We're actually doing both the lift station rehabilitation project as well as the Headworks project under the single loan with KDHE. Are there any questions?
So this work is being done ahead of the other study that we approved last time because we already knew of this, the
Correct. Yep.
requirement for this.
This was
Okay.
a problem that was flagged in 2018 when we did a limited site assessment of the wastewater treatment facility. And then it wasn't until 2022 that we as a city, we started to move forward on both the lift station rehabilitation and also the Headworks repairs. And so it's just taken a while to not only do the design and get the guaranteed maximum price as the lift station project took priority over the Headworks. And then it also took us a while to get the approval from KDHE for the loan increase.
Is any portion of the additional loan increase forgivable?
No.
Does the amendment push out the first payment due date?
Yes, it does. I think I included it in here, and I
I
think
saw it said first payment due 3/1/26 or 1 year after completion. I didn't know which one of those was. If completion 1 year is after 3/1/26, does it delay to after 3/1/26?
it will be the 1 year after completion. So, and right now it's a 15-month schedule for completion once we sign the agreement with the joint venture for them to go through and execute the work.
Okay.
And it would be the same joint venture partner as we're using for the lift station rehabilitation.
The rebuilding of the lift station, just so you know, I used to work for the city for 33 years. So when I used to be the electrician, so I used to work on the rebuild system.
Mm-hmm.
Are they gonna put backup generators in it, or do they have a valve to bypass when you lose power?
So I'm not sure about all of the lift stations, and that's actually part of the work we're going to be doing with HDR is an overall emergency preparedness. But I do know that a couple of the lift stations out of the 5 do have emergency generators as part of that scope.
Good. So we're gonna do the rest later, or?
We're already doing the lift station rehabilitation. We've got the funding. We're under contract, and we actually kicked off that work with our joint venture construction partner 2 weeks ago. And now it's just about getting the approval for the additional funding so we can go ahead and enter into execution for the headworks improvement.
I have one more question. So these projects were on the CIP, weren't they, or no? From last year?
Yes. I'm trying to think of the year, though. I don't remember. Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I was pausing for. I couldn't remember the year.
okay. Okay, that's fine. I'm thinking of something else too with it, but just thinking about what this would free up in CIP funds, but it doesn't sound like that this would be relevant this year. It was on it previously, so. Okay, thank you. I have no additional questions. Is there anybody from the audience who has questions about this item or would like to speak about this item? Any additional questions or comments from council?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would move to approve an ordinance authorizing the loan agreement amendment number 1 between the City of Hutchinson and the Kansas Department of Health and Environment and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Richardson?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Bass?
Yes.
Magers?
Yes.
Goss?
Yes.
Item 7C, consider a resolution authorizing the sale of $5,270,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2025A, and $1,065,000 general obligations bonds, taxable, Series 2025B, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Angela Richard, Director of Finance. Over the last several months, you have been approving projects that we intend to bond. This resolution would give finance staff the ability to start the bonding process, and those projects are for the Woody Seat Phase 2 of $3.6 million, and then City Hall safety improvements, 30th Avenue reconstructs, the City Hall boiler, fire station preemption, and the LEC elevator repair. Those are the 2025A, which are tax exempt. The 2025B that is taxable is for the atrium. So at this point, we would ask for the resolution to be approved so that we can start the bonding process. We would then go through the Moody's rating. We would advertise the bids for sale. We would anticipate the sale to be the morning of May 20th, with those bids being accepted by council that evening at the council meeting. And then we would actually receive the funds and close on the bonds around June 26th. So unless there are any questions, I would recommend approval of the resolution.
What happens in the off chance that the atrium owner pays his bond or pays the?
We are going to make that bond callable after 5 or 6 years so that we can then pay off the bonds early. We're trying to work with that to make it callable so we can pay them off early without making it too soon to where no one wants to buy the bonds. So there's that balance there, but I'm working with financing counsel on that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Is there any further discussion from council? Looking for a motion to approve?
I move to approve a resolution authorizing the sale of $5,270,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2025A, and $1,065,000 general obligation bonds, taxable, Series 2025B, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Richardson?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Bass?
Yes.
Magers?
Yes.
Goss?
Yes.
Item 7D, consider a resolution for public hearing on advisability of Community Improvement District CID for Hutchinson Mall Phase 2 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Rockstep Hutchinson LLC, owners of Uptown Hutch Mall, have petitioned for a 2% CID to replace the current 1% CID. I have Tommy Stewart, representative for Rockstep, and then I believe Mark Abbott is on the Zoom call with us as well, in case you have questions for them. The resolution that we are asking for you to approve tonight is to set the public hearing for May 6th at 5:30 at that council meeting, where we will have a public hearing where the public can comment, and we will discuss this matter further, and we'll have more detail for you. So at May 6th council meeting, we would present the development agreement that we have been working on, and we would discuss the project in general. The project is to increase tenants at the mall, and the timeline for that would happen in 2027. Once those timelines in the development agreement have been met, we would contact the state and notify them that we wanted to implement the 2% CID and withdraw the 1% CID. Also, part of that development agreement includes maintaining their parking lot and private roads per city council's request. So they are here for any questions you may have, and then we recommend approving the resolution to set the public hearing, and then we will publish that in the newspaper.
So it sounds like you kind of explained both the public hearing and then a little bit about the funding agreement,
Yeah.
essentially in one.
Yeah, I
presentation.
have the funding agreement in a separate memo, but part of that funding agreement that we're asking you to approve, they would pay us money upfront, or they have paid it today, so that we can pay the legal costs that have been incurred so far and will be incurred before the public hearing, and any other costs that may be associated, like the publication of the notice for public hearing. And that's typical. They have agreed to it and signed it. And like I said, they have presented the check for that as well.
Now, this extra tax or 2% from 1% goes to them, it doesn't go to the city. That's right.
Right. It goes to the city, and the city makes sure that they have expenses that meet the criteria of the development agreement, that they have the invoices and support for those expenses, and that they follow the criteria. Once we do that, the city does take a 5% admin fee, and then we pay the rest to the owner of the CID, which is how it works for all the other CIDs we have as well.
Is there anybody in the audience? Sorry, I can't hear anything. I'm completely underwater. My ears are clogged. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak about this item? Yes. Please come to the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Mike Warren. I live at 9410 East 4th, out east. I'm not part of the city. I live out in the county. And my question is how long has this CID of this 1% been on? And how much money are we sitting on right now before we go and invest another 1% on top of it? I mean, there's nothing being done out there in that mall area at all. As you guys minted the roads, the buildings, it all looks pretty messy. We got the senior open coming in 2029. We need to do something to bring this city together and make it look more presentable to the public that's going to be coming in here and the money that's going to be brought into this city. And I just think I'm all for economic development, and we've got to step up and do all we can to make this city better. You know, as you drive around, you don't see any signs out here that even says "Welcome to Hutchinson" out here on the roads. You know, people don't even know where they're at half the time. So I think before you go ahead and put another 1% on the taxpayers out here, to make sure that we've got something coming back to us in the long term. the city, make it more beautiful to us. And my concern is how much money are we setting on before we invest any more money out there? Anytime you have a development and you need to make some improvements on it, you usually do that at your expense. You don't ask somebody else to take care of it. What guarantees do we have that somebody's going to come in there and fill that mall and we put the money out there? So that's just some of my concerns. Thank you.
I don't have numbers to answer that because that's probably something better addressed during the public hearing. They do currently have expenses that they haven't been reimbursed for.
I don't know if tonight's the right time to do it, but when we do have the public hearing, I think
I believe Mark would like to speak. I don't know if IT can help unmute him.
So the YouTube's delayed just a bit. Are you guys, Mark Abbott with Pulcinelli, counsel for the developer, are you able to hear me?
Barely.
Barely, yeah.
Okay, I'll speak up. So a full presentation from the developer and the development team will be presented at the May meeting, the actual public hearing. So we will describe the exact projects that are going to occur, the total cost for the entirety of the new project, and the portion of that project that we are requesting to be eligible for reimbursement for CID. So again, we will have a full presentation at the public hearing. Today is just requesting that council set a future date for the public hearing.
Thank you for the clarification, Mark. I believe council understands, however, people at home watching might not understand, which is no fault of their own. This is kind of a confusing process, but if anybody is just tuning in. So essentially all we're talking about right now is, do we want to set a hearing date for this item? And I believe it's always, the answer is always yes, we should set a hearing date to talk about this. And if you look at the map, I believe personally, in my understanding from talking with people about this item in particular, there's a lot of frustration, and it isn't necessarily with this CID, it's with the one next door. And that's something that council has been talking about with staff to talk about essentially code enforcement in the same way that we apply it to the rest of town. And so for that, if there's no other audience members who would like to speak on this item or questions from council, I believe we should set our meeting date.
I was only going to note that I think when the public hearing happens, we should have a quick primer course on what a CID is and how that works, just to make sure everyone's clear before we get in discussions and presentations.
And a big map.
And a big map, that's fine. I don't have any other questions.
We have a motion.
I would move to approve a resolution for public hearing on advisability of Community Improvement District for Hutchinson Mall Phase 2 and authorize the mayor to sign May 6th.
I'll sign that. I'll second that.
Richardson?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Bast?
Yes.
Magers?
Yes.
Goss?
Yes.
Item number 8, new business. Consider a funding agreement between Rockstep Hutchinson LLC and the City of Hutchinson, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Angela Richter, Director of Finance. I've already kind of described the funding agreement. Are there any questions regarding that item? I would recommend approval.
I'll move to approve a funding agreement between Rockstep Hutch LLC and the City of Hutchinson and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Richardson?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Bast?
Yes.
Magers?
Yes.
Goss?
Yes.
Item number 8B, spring cleanup, April 26 and 27.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jacob Motz. I am a supervisor with the Street Department. We're here to tell you about our dates set for the spring cleanup. As you can see on the TVs, April 26th, Saturday, and Sunday, April 27th, we will be setting out, in collaboration with Stutzman's Refuge, we'll be setting out dumpsters across Hutchinson. They will be in the same locations as they were in the previous years. There is a list on the city's website of all locations. We have several volunteers and 2 loaders from the street division rotating through the locations to help citizens with loading up any large debris that they have to put in there. I'd like to thank Jessica Woodyard for updating the flyer with our new city logo, and Stutzman's Refuge for once again helping us clean up Hutchinson. And now to give some historical information, I'd like to pass the podium to my cohort in crime and fellow supervisor, Jeff Nichols.
Kids these days, no respect. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council, my name is Jeff Nichols. I am a supervisor for the street department. Just to give you a little bit of history, this will be our 19th year of doing the spring cleanup. It began in 2007 when then Code Enforcement Officer Roy Little was just having fits trying to get people to clean up their properties. Is a similar situation we heard of here just a little while ago. And so in meeting those folks halfway, he came up with the idea of working with Stutzman's Refuse and setting out the roll-off dumpsters around the community in multiple locations just to encourage folks to come in and do that. And so that's been done. We use the same 14 locations. Most of those are on or near city property or right-of-way, so we don't have trespass issues. A lot of people don't like half the city driving down their street and in their neighborhood, so we try to keep them out in the open as much as we can and go for that. So, and as Jake said, that we have 2 loaders and 3 pickups running around so that if somebody has a hard time, we can set it on the ground, come back later with a loader, pick it up, push it down, and get as many as we can. You should have in your packet there the last 4 years of spring cleanup information. And you can see there, we typically average about 135 tons per year and about 60 dumps of dumpsters. So basically over the last 18 years, we've had 1,080 hauls or dumpster loads hauled off of approximately 2,430 tons of debris removed from blight areas and just people cleaning up and keeping the community in better shape. So. Any questions you might have? Just a little bit of the history.
Do they have to separate anything like tires? I know when we go.
Tires are not allowed. There is a list on the on this but because the landfill will not take tires just mixed in generally, we just ask them to take those directly out to the landfill. White goods, again, same thing. They have a place out at the landfill. The landfill is free if you're a Reno County resident, and they have separate areas for that type of stuff. And then anything hazardous material-wise, like paint or anything like that, again, they have specific places out there, and there's no charge for them to take that out there and present that at the landfill.
So if somebody has the large item that, let's say they're at a dump site and there is no loader present at that moment, is the expectation that they would leave it next to the dumpster?
Yes, and then we'll
Okay.
pick it up the next time the loader comes
Okay.
by. We split the town in half, 1 loader and 1 pickup on each side, and then we have a floating pickup operator just to kind of give them a quick call, or if we notice dumpsters are filling up quick, we'll call Delwyn Crabtree with Stutzman, and he'll get an extra operator out there to get it dumped so that we don't have a big mess developing around our area.
Okay.
So, okay, anyone else? Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item number 8C, discussion of murals and signage.
Good evening again, Council. Matt Williams, Director of Community Development. So tonight I'm here to talk to you about murals and signage. This was a request that we heard at or the council meeting earlier this month. We also had a recent request to use a mural as signage, and other communities are in the news for this topic, so we thought it'd be good to kind of give you an idea of about how we handle the issue. So these are some great examples of beautiful murals around town. I think we all understand that murals can kind of brighten up a city, have interest on the street, and can be a really positive thing for our community. These are some examples of signs that you may have seen. Signs help direct people. They help advertise the commercial issues that are going on inside of a building, and very important to our community as well. So signage is regulated by Chapter 27 of our city code. These regulations specifically for signage were last updated in 2018, and that included a lot of community input at the time, and we even worked with a local sign company to help us craft those, all the different regulations. New signage, when it goes up, does require a sign permit, and that's because our sign code is intended to balance the need to protect the public health, safety, welfare, and aesthetics of the community with the need for adequate identification, communication, economic development, and advertising. Now, a lot of the signs we just saw on the side of a building, we call those wall signs, and we regulate that by the size that it is, and it's allowed to be up to 20% of the side of the face of a wall in commercial and industrial districts. So for example, those signs we would regulate by measuring kind of an imaginary rectangle around the advertisement and then see if that's 20% or less of that face of the wall. Murals, on the other hand, they are exempt from the sign code as long as they do not contain an advertising message. Murals are not regulated by the city. So in this example, a large butterfly, beautiful butterfly, but because there's no advertisement in it, it would not be counted as a mural, and they don't have to bring that to the city at all. They can paint that on the side of their wall if they'd like. Sometimes murals do become signage when they include an advertisement message. So in this example, the name of the restaurant is included within the mural, and in that case, we would calculate the size of the mural by using an area of a rectangle and enclosing the advertisement message. So in this case, the McDonald's, we would put a rectangle around that, measure that. That would need to be less than 20% of the side of the wall. So again, here's kind of 3 examples to kind of bring it all together. So the one on the left, that's purely a mural. We do not regulate that. On the top right, we've got a sign kind of included within the mural. We would regulate just the portion of the mural that has the word on it, McDonald's. That we would measure the size of that, and it would have to be less than 20% of the building. And then in the bottom right, that is an advertisement for a business that is not on site. So we would consider that an off-premise advertisement, which would be a billboard, and that would have to follow our billboard regulations. And then I know there's also some interest in maintenance of signs and murals. So for signs, anything that would include advertisement, we would look at our code, and our code does not allow dilapidated signs. So that could be a zoning violation. Abandoned signs, they're given 180 days to remove the advertising message. So a business downtown, if it leaves, theoretically it has 180 days to remove their sign or put up an empty message there, so it's no longer advertising something that's not there. And then murals, if there was an issue with paint deterioration, that would fall under the property maintenance code and could go through the process like anything else. So that's kind of a brief overview, hopefully giving you kind of an idea of how we handle this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What would be abandonment of a off-property advertisement sign?
So you're talking about a billboard, is that correct?
Then, I'm thinking of one specifically,
Mm-hmm.
but
so
it's
is
not,
there
it's
still
not a
language on it?
Mm-hmm.
It's just in really bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
I would consider that probably a dilapidated sign. They need to keep it up, and the frame of the sign, the stand, everything has to be in good working order, and the advertisement. If it looks like it's been torn off and it's in pieces and it doesn't make sense anymore, that's probably a dilapidated sign. We could handle it like that.
Is this code basically an adopted code from, what is it, the Uniform Municipal Code book, or whatever it is, and then modified for local?
Building code usually is adopted and it's pretty standard everywhere. The sign code is similar to the zoning code. It's we take bits and pieces from other communities, but it's all pretty strict. So, pretty different and unique. So in this example, one issue that comes up, if you look at the top right sign, McDonald's within a mural, In our community, the way I've interpreted the code is we are going to measure around the McDonald's because that's the advertisement portion, and we're going to see if it fits within our size regulations. If the mural behind it, instead of flowers, were French fries or hamburgers, I think we would still handle it the same way. Well, that's how I'm interpreting it. We would handle it the same way. We would measure the McDonald's portion. Other communities would interpret it maybe differently. Maybe their sign codes a little differently, and they would measure the whole thing. Because French fries are sold inside, they would consider that an advertisement inside.
Now, the one on the bottom right with the Coca-Cola, if that was painted on the side of the building, that would fall under billboard?
Yeah, I realized afterwards, it's a slightly bad example because they sell Coca-Cola inside, but imagine it's a product for Wendy's or something, which would be crazy.
What if it's McDonald's bad-mouthing Wendy's on their advertisement on the side of the truck?
Well, whatever it is, if it's a large sign advertising something that's not on site, so if it's for Walmart or something, that's not something on site. You're advertising something in a different location. That's an off-site sign, which would be a billboard.
Is there such a thing as grandfathered in signage? We have some older buildings that have old paint
Yes.
that someone may want to restore, but it's still there. You can see it. I think of the Frank Holiday Hardware building on.
Painted on the side of a building.
Yeah, but it's been there for decades.
Yeah, I would say that would fall under, it being on there would fall under being grandfathered. Now, it would still need to be maintained.
I just think there's a historical need aspect
Yeah.
to that. So I want this to negate that.
Well, I think it's good timing to talk about this because not only did the state of Kansas announce that there's a grant opportunity, but also we get this magazine, Kansas Government Journal, and has a whole thing about murals. And I'm a little sad that Hutch isn't in there, but murals are all over Kansas. They're all over everywhere, and they're especially. I think they're especially concentrated in our downtown area. And as we have the conversations about downtown and revitalization, what are ways that people can either use this grant funding or their own funding to put murals out and be in compliance? Because I guarantee there's somebody sitting out there right now thinking, I really want to put a mural on the side of my building. I don't know where to start. I think we have a really nice piece on our website. I was just reading it about the pool FAQ, and it breaks down kind of the main things you need to know about if you have a pool or if you're putting one up, I guess. And I guess I would like to see something like that if a person, because our website is not super user-friendly and it's nobody's fault, it's just not, but something like that somebody could turn to our website and put in mural and have a really clear understanding of where to start and who to contact and what is the process and how long does it take and how is the 20% calculated, because not all business owners are wanting to walk into City Hall and ask a bunch of questions. They might want to do their own research before they get that far, or artists even. But yeah, I think we have beautiful murals already. There are a few in town that are not beautiful. And I'll put them in on See-Click-Fix. But yeah, I would be curious what the interpretation would be on a couple of those. And I won't call them out here specifically. I'll have another conversation with you. But yeah, is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak on this item? Greg, you've used this twice. Do you have any?
Of what?
You've done a mural twice.
No, I did on the second one, make sure with the city that, there wasn't a violation. And as you said, there's really nothing about it. I have two on my buildings. I think murals are a good thing, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I would want to know, is our sign code right? I remember these discussions back in 2018 with the height of a sign, and they agreed on 17 and a half foot, it was this long protracted discussion. And so I'm going to assume our sign code is right.
Well, I've read just, I think it was at State Fair Road and Main Street not too long ago, a billboard was being contested about what was it an off-premise advertisement or how, but they were trying to make it bigger, right? And not go digital, just make it a bigger static billboard. Yeah, I think it comes up in planning and zoning quite a bit. And we do have some people with some knowledge of that. Would you guys like to weigh in on the sign code part?
Well, the sign code sometimes kicks into building code as well, depending on the structure that the sign is utilizing.
Tom, I didn't do it. She did. But I kind of did because you were back there going.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My
You're
name is
welcome.
Tom Sellers. I live at 22 Countryside Drive, and I'm with Lumineo Signs, formerly known as Luminous Neon to most of you. We work with the local sign code. We work with local sign codes all over the Midwest, and we're involved with developing the current code with planning staff back when that was done, and feel it's generally contemporary. Every 5 to 8 years, cities should review their sign codes. We have a person on staff who used to sit where you all sit to work with municipalities as they evolve, because they get out of date. Language changes, products aren't used that are specifically called out. And so just keeping it fresh and current. The Hutch code is generally fine. I agree with Mr. Williams on the interpretation of when a mural is not a mural when it's a sign. I think it's appropriate. I do recall an instance several years ago where a muralist had incorporated a sign and it was too big, and they went back and redid it, and it was appropriate. And so I love seeing the murals as an art form. It makes it interesting and vibrant, but it can't be two things that it shouldn't be. So I think our code is appropriate for the community. Always things we can work on. Next time it comes up, we'd love to have our team sit with the city staff and debate issues. We were the applicant for the larger billboard on State Fair Road. It's a good conversation. There have been several go up in town. There are some vagaries in that. We had always interpreted it one way, and then new boards show up from other people in town, not in town, and they were interpreted differently and given a permit. So gray areas don't serve anybody's purpose well. So there are things that can always be tightened up, but they're in time. Be happy to work with staff to get those tightened up. Can I answer any questions other than continuing to blather on?
Well, how do we compare with other comparable cities? That's what I really like to know, how we're doing compared to other places. You're all over the state, and even in Missouri, I believe. And
right.
Are we okay? And we won't hold it against you if we.
No. I think our sign code allows for appropriate signage for its traffic speed, its visibility. You go to highly forested areas. We talked about Arbor Day today. They can't have a good enough sign code because they're all hidden behind trees down in South Carolina and places like that. You can't see signs, and they're not allowed to be very big, and so that's a terrible sign code. So for the nature of our community, ours shouldn't be the same as Wichita's. There are elements that are appropriate and elements that aren't. And so I think that's all been taken into consideration, and we've, to my knowledge, not had anybody come to Hutchinson and be concerned about developing any type of business or operation because of the sign code. Downtown, there's a couple of nitpicky things that come up on rare occasion when somebody wants to do something interesting, but it's not often. Love for it to be more often because that means somebody's trying to do something interesting, but that's why we have the variance process, frankly. We haven't seen a lot of sign variances in the last several years, which means you've got a pretty good code.
Thanks, Tom.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
I got a question for Mr. Williams real quick, please. This is kind of off the subject, but it is on graffiti. When we get graffiti on the buildings, is it the building's owner responsibility to take it off? Or how do we handle the graffiti?
Yes, if graffiti is on the building, it would be on the building owner to remove that, yeah.
What? I had some people call me about some graffiti, and I'm gonna have to call them back and tell them. Didn't we at one time, didn't we used to go and take graffiti off buildings? Must have been our own buildings that we took graffiti off.
Yeah, it'd be the city's buildings.
Yeah. All right.
and we do, if they don't do it, we go do it for them.
Depends how difficult it is. Maybe a mural if it takes too much effort on my part to clean it off.
The facade improvement program that we just passed, which I don't have in front of me, is it your understanding that a mural would be eligible for reimbursement under the facade improvement program?
It was not written to include that. It did talk about using money for signage, not specifically murals, though.
Okay.
Well, it talked about money for signage or paint, but it didn't talk about murals.
So you're saying it could?
There's a gray area there, I guess.
I just thought of that. So, okay. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak on this item? Please.
Hello, Council. My name is Anthony Marquez. I'm at 14 East 2nd Avenue. I actually went to the Art Institute in Chicago. I was commissioned by a restaurant in New York City to do a piece of art as an advertisement. And I can tell you that to the business, it is advertisement, but to the artist, it's art. And I think that we see a lot of collaboration with Target and certain fashion designers, you know. So we see a lot of collaborations with businesses and art. So I do believe that it can be two things at once. And I think that when we broaden the definition of what a mural is, it brings in people, it brings an artist into business. It brings a lot of potential money, you know, because people who are a fan of an artist will travel to see the artist, to see their work, to see stuff done like that. And people just like to take pictures, you know. We're living in the age of, you know, the selfie. So I do believe that things can be two things at once. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, and so the purpose of tonight is really truly just to have a conversation and start a conversation about signage and murals. However, I think council would be open to hearing from residents, or staff would be open to hearing from residents in the coming weeks. And, you know, we could probably take this up if we do decide there's something to take action on. As of right now, there is no action item on this, and there isn't any changes to current code or any new interpretations of current code. Does council have anything else to add? Next item, please.
Item 10, report of city officials.
Mr. Garza.
Okay. You know, before I get off the council, can we start on that side?
No.
No, okay. I'd like to let everybody know, come out to the cleanup when this happens. It works really well. Our dumpsters get full pretty fast, and all the yards looking better. So if you can, take advantage of this time that we have given you to clean up the yards and get everything up there. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
To add to that, we're not allowing large metal objects into the dumpsters, but we do have a couple of recyclers here in town that will take large metal objects or small metal objects. So you do have an option there. And then I'm going to throw this out into ether. Has there been discussion on having a public input date for Memorial Hall yet? Because I've been getting beat up on that this week.
Well, I was gonna bring that up, but
Well,
you
then I'm
can,
done. I'll
if
pass
you'd
to-
like.
I'll pass to you.
No, we're gonna send it on down to Mr. Fast.
I have a few things. Third Thursday this week, downtown, Specifically, if you would like to show up at 6:15 at DCI Park, they're going to have a sculpture unveiling called Harmony. Haven't seen a rendition of that or anything. I think it's probably something DCI has taken upon themselves. I did ask the question what the concrete work was for, because I believe a landscaper just redid a bunch of stuff and they were tearing it up for new concrete, and I found out that it was for a piece of art. Next thing, couple things in regards to South Main Street. We need to continue to bird dog that. There are 2 doors busted out still that were taken down by Kansas Gas or the fire department. They're wide open. What's going to happen is somebody's going to get in there and start a fire to stay warm and burn the buildings down. So I'm not sure if staff could take a look at that, call Kansas Gas or whatever our contact is. Be happy to give you the addresses. I just think it's important that we finish that catastrophe downtown and move on from that. And I would prefer a door to be put back on there and not just a piece of plywood that looks like we put a piece of plywood up. I think there's some other issues. I did talk to Darren Clifford, the owner of Stephens. He said next week the insurance company will be back in to do some other looking and testing, and then he will bulldoze it. He wants it down worse than we do. And he can't get it's his insurance that's holding things up. It's not really Kansas Gas on that. So anyway, he's working hard on that. And then just another part of South Main, I feel like we've mentioned before the entrance to Cary Park and the crumbling, where there's a sidewalk on the east side of the road. I don't know if a car hit it or what, but the limestone entrance to Cary Park needs attention, and it has needed attention for a long time. So if we could get going on those things, or I believe that's all I had.
Are you in contact with the owners of the properties with the doors?
I am not. I'm
Okay.
afraid they're probably absentee owners. It's had
Okay.
a for sale sign in it for 20 years.
Well, the reason I ask is because the period to make a claim for the repairs is still open. However, I don't think we can make that for them. So if we do go make the repair, we're probably going to put up board.
It is.
So
It's just worthy of a conversation.
Absolutely.
Maybe somebody has a contact with Kansas Gas and they could put the door back up and we could move on down the road. But it's just another accident waiting to happen. So,
We can always ask.
yeah,
thank you.
I think that's it.
Am I next?
Clearly.
So I got a couple things. I got an email about the intersection at 43rd and Plum, where it transitions from 55 to 40 coming into town and the reverse going north of town. So I guess it used to, well, it's always a busy intersection. The drop-off time has changed from 7:30 to 7:40, so that's increased the traffic in that area. So I don't know if there's something, I know that's city and county, 43rd Street, so I don't know if there's something that we need to look into for that potentially, to see if that, I don't know what the traffic, the wrecks have been there recorded or anything like that, but I just got that email yesterday, and so I just wanted to throw that out there, that maybe we should take a look at that and just make sure there's no hazard there. And the person emailed me about it said they're only there till the end of this year, so it's not going to really change what they've seen, but hopefully for the future, so we don't have an accident there or something in the future. So just something, I don't know where we take that to, but I'm sure somebody can look into it now. On the railroad crossings, so the 800 number on the railroad crossings, how often do you have to call in to get those fixed? I would like to know, is that something that multiple people in our community need to
Yes.
call about? Because
Yes.
the ones at 11th and 17th out by the mall are terrible, and I know there's more around too.
Fourth Street is worse.
Fourth is
Fourth and
worse.
Porter.
Yeah, exactly. Terrible.
I called about that one recently. Yeah. So you have to call the number and give the code.
How often do you need to call that to
A
get
lot,
it fixed?
because the one on D in Maine took, I don't know, multiple people calling it last summer before the railroad reached out to us. I do have a phone number. I want to say he's Union Pacific. He's like a maintenance manager. I left a voicemail 2 weeks ago, but I'll reach out to him again. But those aren't UP. Those are
Yeah.
something else.
So I guess encourage people. The little number up
Yes.
on the railroad crossing is where you find it. They don't make it very big, so you
It's
have
a
to really
little
look for it.
green placard.
It shows up better at night when it's all highlighted with your headlights. So anyway, I would encourage people, if the crossings are annoying, to call that number and just keep reporting it. So I think they'll get fixed faster that way. And I know next thing is I know our fire department and 911 have been very busy the last few days, and I just wanted to thank them for their responses and taking care of our community and safety for it. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you. You guys stole a lot of the things that I was planning to talk about. One of them that I know comes up every spring is camper storage. I think it's the bane of some people's existence, and especially people whose neighbors have campers. So that's something that I do want to hear from staff in the next couple of weeks about what is our current camper parking and storage code, and what does enforcement look like, and how do people know if their neighbors are in compliance or if they are in compliance themselves. And then I would expect council to have a conversation about if the current code makes sense for us, if we should revisit it, because I think that it comes up every spring, just like grass and weeds and mowing compliance. Okay, so the Mama K's taxi, I actually rode in the taxi today. I had to take my minivan in for service, and it was really great, and I think our code is working. TJ, the owner, gave me a ride, and prompt service, very clean car. He said that he's been enjoying driving, so I will say that it's at least working for him. The other side, I don't know about the other side, but Memorial Hall meeting, I think the expectation is that we will be having a meeting before the RFPs come back, just to listen to people. We have the option of tacking that onto a regular meeting or incorporating it into a regular council meeting or doing it at Memorial Hall, which would give us the opportunity to also provide building tours or make it a little more interactive for people as well. Dave, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think we are happy to help organize a community meeting to discuss Memorial Hall. Dave Sotelo, Director of Strategic Growth. Jessica is not here, but we talked about this and with the city manager as well. My staff is probably sick and tired of hearing me ask every time we want to do a community meeting, what's the purpose? What's the intent? And unless we get really clear about that, we're not going to have a meeting. And I won't be as direct to you guys, but it would be helpful to us to know, are we seeking feedback on what should happen to Memorial Hall? Are we seeking feedback on what we should tell a developer? Or are we seeking feedback on what we do if not Memorial Hall? Getting really a clear idea of that would be helpful to us. Otherwise, we're just going to bring people and it'll be a free-for-all of information and questions. And we'd like to just have a better structure, but we can't get that unless we are really clear about what the council is wanting input on. And that input tends to need to have an action behind it, right? And so it should help inform an action that you are going to take. So with that, we'd love for you guys to have a discussion on what your intent and goal is, and then we can decide a format that makes it a little bit more interactive and similar to what we've done in the past for community meetings. But that structure seems to help gather pretty good data and then also just make sure everybody remains respectful and productive.
I feel like the events that are held in Memorial Hall and in any time you're doing something in an old and aging building, you rope off where there's, bad concrete. You close the stalls and put out do not enter signs when a toilet doesn't work, stuff like that. And so often we do that as a protection against liability, and it makes people think that the building is in better shape than it is. So my expectation, if we do have a meeting at Memorial Hall, would be that we're almost highlighting the things that are wrong with it. We're not going to have people go up on the roof and check out the roof or anything like that, but like we could show pictures and we could show what, I know there's issues with ramps and stuff like that, and we could highlight what some of the investments that if we maintain or we keep control of Memorial Hall and we do make those investments, what are those and what would they mean? That way people can see them saying, oh, you're going to do what to the ramps? The ramps are fine. Well, no, here's how they should be, with pictures and charts or what have you, and dollar signs attached to these projects. That would be my expectation of the event, so that people are not only able to give us their opinion on whatever they're seeing and what they arrive with their preconceived notions, but we're also able to see the building. I haven't been in there in a couple months either.
That sounds good to me. Yeah.
What type of event were you hoping for, John?
I was actually hoping for an event where maybe we spend 10, 15 minutes going over the current condition of the facility and what has brought us to the point where we're at now. And then getting feedback, whether it's through, there's different ways to do it. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100% verbal in regards to if there was a route to conserve the building and still meet the goal of the city of making it a net zero, or going to more of a city park type space. Not getting specific, just the fork in the road. What would your preference be? And if they have comments to make below that, I think that would be. So it's not a free-for-all. So it's a little bit more of a data acquisition after that. I think a format like that would be attainable, but I'm more concerned with getting something done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so you're interested in gathering feedback on what happens if the city were to decide Memorial Hall is not feasible, and it gets demoed, data on, or some input on what the public might be interested in, and on the other hand, if the city were to make investments on Memorial Hall to make it net zero, what they would be interested in. Am I hearing that correctly?
If there's a lot of directions this could go. I'm not talking about the city taking the responsibility of fixing that Memorial Hall off top, because it seems like that's not the direction we're going. It seems to me like we are requesting RFPs for an outside entity to give us a proposal to take care of or to handle Memorial Hall on behalf of the city in some way, shape, or form. Would that be more attractive to the community than converting Memorial Hall to a specialized, I don't want to say park space because it's a little bit different than a regular park space, a green space, an interactive green space in some way, shape, or form? Which one of those would people lean towards? And then I think city council needs to hear RFPs once those come in and take the information from that meeting to help, hey, based on what we're seeing in the meeting, this is kind of what direction people are leaning towards, given these circumstances.
I agree with you. However, I think there's people, Mr. Juma, who was at the last meeting included, who would want to see the city maintaining control and moving to I don't know what he called it, like a sponsor promoter type of agreement system. So I feel like you guys have conducted a lot of community meetings, and the format, I hate for us to give you to tell you exactly what the format we want to see is, because I think that naturally it might take on a life of its own.
There will be some
and that's why I think intent is more helpful to me. Like, what is the questions that you want asked, and then we can figure out a way to ask them.
Do you think it'll be a similar type event like when we did the downtown master plan?
Yeah.
Is that-
That is certainly one way we could do that, yeah.
Because I know, I've been getting calls too about trying to figure out what to do, and people want, they don't want to go away, and so I think that's how probably the best way to get the input. So I figured that might be some way direction we would head on that too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that specifically Jesse, he's like this outlier that he just wants to be the promoter, and we still carry the building and run the deficit. So, I think maybe, Stacy, where you're coming from makes sense. Hey, public, here's what we have.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like generally the council wants to figure out whether we demo the building or find an alternative that does not add more cost to the city. And providing input on any other option that you might not take, actually, options that you're not considering, like the one that you just described, we can certainly do that and open that. But is that really your intent on the feedback that you're trying to gather?
I think the citizens need to know why the city council has come to this position that we're at, why we're considering of doing something with Memorial Hall. We've got to give the bad news, not to say we have bad news. What's going on? Why we came to this decision at looking at Memorial Hall. So we have to be totally honest why we came up with that decision. Somehow we need to put that in there. They need to know the whole story. Yeah,
that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. I got to explain it to people all the time why we come to that decision to even bring it up again. It's been brought up over and over and over again. So they have to need to know the whole story. So, does that help you?
That is actually really helpful.
Okay, good.
I feel like we haven't been helpful, but that's great that you feel that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. It's like,
Well, I mean, what we don't want to do is ask questions that we can come up with questions all day long, but if it's not what you're looking for.
We need to present what's our problem
Yeah.
as a city, budgeting, maintenance, and all this, and why that has taken us to this point.
Yeah.
And we seem to be at a fork in the road.
Yeah.
Which Convention Hall, Memorial Hall's been at a fork in the road before.
yeah,
And
for
that's
the
important
last
to
30
present
years.
and to present on the history of it as well.
Okay. All right. Anything else we should consider?
Good luck.
Okay, thank you. That's very kind of you, Councilman Garza. What we'll do is we'll put a plan together, give it to the city manager. He can distribute to you all, and then we'll try to find a date to schedule this within the next 2 weeks, maybe. I don't want to make any promises, but maybe a date that works for all of you, and it'll likely be in the evening at Memorial Hall. I'm not sure about tours at it.
I would avoid tours for a group like, we don't know if it'll be 10 people or 100 people or 200
Well, so, right. However, you could open the building all day and have people come, I don't know, have someone go sit out there at a table and take people around and give them a tour if they wanted. I don't know.
Do a 5-minute video walkthrough. People can watch the video.
I think the idea earlier of having pictures of what the different areas look like might be helpful.
We could have Mr. Garza give tours too.
I'd like a tour. There's a lot of the building that I've never actually seen.
Stacy and Steve can do the Cow Creek tours with their waiters.
All right. Thank you so much, Council.
Thank you.
Walk away as it deteriorates.
Scott, to your point about the speed limit coming into town and heading out of town, I don't know if I hit send on the email earlier, but I intend to ask Randy Parks to meet for coffee or have kind of an informal meeting that we can talk about this a little bit to see if this is something that they've been having conversations about as well. It feels like all of the roads coming into town could slow down just a little bit. And that we would benefit by having safer streets. However, it doesn't seem like just doing it on Plum would fix it because people might just go to the next street and fly down that street. But So I'm going to try to meet with him in the next couple of weeks and see if we need to make any changes.
Isn't Monroe Street slower? It's 50 coming in, so it is slower coming. It's Plum that's the busy one, and it's right by the school. So
Yeah.
I can see the concern to this and the time, the change in the drop-off times. So it's something we probably should need to take a look at, city and
So I don't
county.
think they changed their, they didn't change their like actual, the times that we would need to change the school zone. I think they changed the time that they open the doors.
Drop off, yeah. When you
Right.
could drop your kid at the
Yes,
school.
yeah.
They changed that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
And then the last thing that I want to mention is in regards to fires and hoarding. It seems like a handful of fires that we've had in the past couple of weeks have been hoarding situations. And this is a concern not only for the people who are immediately right there, but for the firefighters and first responders who respond to the situation. That's the whole reason we have code, and we do try to enforce it. And like I said, sometimes it becomes an invisible part of the process, but we do the best we can. But we operate on a system of a complaint-based system, so we don't, city employees don't drive around looking for code violations. Some people on council do. And so I encourage people to stay on top of that and turn in things that they see that are of concern. And it's not just hoarding, but it's also improper disposal of and storage of things like propane tanks and whatnot. We have code for a reason. And that is all that I have. Mr. Villegas, do you have anything to report?
Yes, I'd actually turn it over to Angela, our finance director.
Angela Richard, Director of Finance. Before you, you should have draft proposals of a policy and application for senior citizens for property tax rebates and utility bill assistance, primarily for water and sewer. We have offered these for your input. We want to start small with these programs to test them out, work out any kinks that we may have. The amounts that we would set aside to allocate towards these programs would be something that we would set aside during the budget process. The way I have structured these programs after looking at many examples would kind of limit our exposure, and the applicants would be first come, first basis, because we would only have so much money set aside for these programs. And just an example of dollar amounts and how many people this would affect. For the property tax, if you set aside $100,000 per year, it would help 216 people. If you set aside $10,000 for utility assistance, it would help 39 people. This is based on waiving their base water and sewer charges that add up to $21.39 a month. So,
Is there any
Well-
grants or anything out to help with this?
I
So we
haven't-
don't have to pull out of the budget?
I have not heard of any, but I haven't researched it extensively, so I could.
I have seen with, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I have seen with other communities that have utility billing assistance that instead of the city kind of covering everything, that they just rely on donations and goodwill from the community. So there are some models that have done that, and then there's a mixture of both. But, I mean, that's at least something I've seen, but I haven't seen a grant.
Okay.
Yeah, we had talked about doing like a round up your payment to help with utility billing assistance, but I don't think that would work with our software, unfortunately. It's not something that's very common with utility bills, so.
Would we be set
water
up
and
in any
sewer.
way to take donations on a, like, where you could, instead of rounding up, but you could like add on $5 or?
That would be harder to monitor, because some people purposely overpay
Right.
$10 or whatever. But I mean, we could do something like where you could go online and make an extra donation. There's probably some ways to collect that and make it easier if people wanted to donate.
Your new website vendor is going to be like, don't make us do that. We don't want to figure it out.
That I could do without asking them. I know how to get that set up on the website.
So because this was handed out to council, this isn't on the website or anything, correct?
No, it's just for
Okay.
your review right now because it is in such an early stage.
Right. Is this something that you can send us as digital copies so that we could email it or disperse it to people? Thank you.
Mayor, I have one more thing, if you don't mind.
Is it about this?
No.
Okay.
Why
Hold
would-
on. Is that all you had for this?
That's all I have
Okay.
right now, yeah.
Thank you.
This last 2 weeks, I had some calls on the Woody State Freeway. Is there any way that we can have another short meeting for people to come ask questions about the construction over there? There's two people that live in that area has questions, and I can't answer their questions because I don't know. Is there another way we can have a meeting so they can get together at Avenue A to ask questions of us and the engineering and where they're at right now?
I mean, I don't see why not. That feels like a big solution to answer questions for two people.
Well, it's more than two. I'm sure they're just the ones that just called me up.
Okay.
And the two people told me a lot of people's asking about it.
Okay.
They don't know what's going on, so.
Okay.
Mayor, those are questions for city staff. Direct those questions to the city manager. He can take care of that. We
Yeah.
don't need a separate meeting for that.
Yeah. Is it something that they would feel comfortable coming in and having a one-on-one meeting with Nico and engineering, or like?
You know, if people want to ask staff, they would ask staff. It's more better if we have a meeting, in my point of view. It's more personal if we have the people there and they can talk to the people face to face.
When's your next community meeting?
I haven't said it, but you really need to have it in the South Bricktown over there at Avenue A, in my point of view. But you could, the rest. of
Right. I
council
mean,
put
there's nothing stopping you from holding a meeting and inviting those folks and inviting city staff to come as well.
Okay.
And Steve, I've been in contact with a couple, and I just answer their questions, or I spoke just tonight to get a question answered for them. You know, I wish they would call me about it. I know sometimes you get
Well, I
frustrated.
can tell them to call you if you like me to.
Well, and I get plenty of calls, don't get me wrong, maybe they are calling me, but I feel like I'm responding to
Okay.
whatever question I might
It's
get.
up to the council. You don't want to do it, let's don't do it.
No, I'm not saying that I have no reason that I would participate other than being mayor and coming to watch, because I don't know anything. First of all, you guys did it before I was on council. And second, like, if it's technical questions, I wouldn't be able to answer them. So, but there's nothing to stop you from saying I'm going to hold a meeting on this date, and just like you've done with your
Okay.
community meetings, and saying that the topic is just about that.
Okay.
I don't feel like there's enough of new information based on, we just had one a couple of months ago.
Okay. I told them I'd ask, and I asked. All right.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Go for it.
Can you try to gather some of the questions? Because it would be horrible to have a meeting and have technical questions. Well, let me go back and references and get an answer to you.
Right.
When that could have been handled through an email.
I'll try that. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because I mean, we have drawings and we have bids and all of that stuff.
is it mostly in regards to now that we see work happening, we want to know why it's happening a certain way?
One question was on the dirt. I don't know nothing about dirt, other than it's getting moved over there to where I work at. So, yeah. I'll just, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Stacy says no.
All right.
That's not, I didn't say no. I said do whatever you want. I don't think it's timely to ask staff to hold another meeting when we just had one a couple of weeks ago. There really is no new information besides the work that we already approved, and we did the bid and all of that. They're now doing the work that we approved.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Villegas, did you have anything else in your remarks?
No, that was it.
Next item, please.
Item number 12, executive session.
Item 12? Or
Well, oh, I'm sorry.
11?
11.
Okay, thank you.
I was about to make a motion.
We have an executive session. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Yes. Hold on.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Meggers.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.